good to be here. Thank you, Stephen, for the warm introduction. And, well, how can I talk about miracles? The first miracle that I would like to talk today is Brazilian speaking for 10 minutes. I've never seen anything like that. Our message is nothing but 40 minutes, you know. So Stephen said, you only have 10 minutes. I already lost 30 seconds, you know. I don't know what to do, you know. Secondly, I had opportunity to go to grad school in Texas, and after I finished my MD, I realized two things. I'm not a philosopher, neither a theologian. A philosopher is a blind guy in a dark room looking for a black cat that is not there. And a theologian is another blind guy in the same dark room looking for the same black cat that is not there, but there is one difference. You know what it is? The theologian tells the philosopher that he or she found the cat. So, I'm just a disciple of Jesus Christ. And I love Jesus. I love Jesus Christ so much. You don't have any idea how much I love him. My life could not be the same without Christ. And I would like to share with you a passage in the Gospel of John that is an amazing passage because I can see the love of God in my life and the love of God in everybody around me. And this passage speaks in an amazing way in my life. It says, after these, Jesus went up to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, also called Sea of Tiberias, and a large crowd kept following him because they saw the signs that he was doing for the sick. Jesus went up to the mountain and sat down there with his disciples. Now there was a Passover. The feast of the Jews was near. And when he looked up and saw a large crowd coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, where shall we buy bread for those people to eat? Where shall we buy bread for those people to eat? Philip answered, 6 months' wage would not buy enough bread for each of them to get a little. However, one of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, there is a boy here with 5 bare loaves and 2 fish. But what are they among so many people? And Jesus said, make people sit down. Now there was a great deal of grass on that place. So they sat down, about 5,000 in all. Then Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated, and also the fish, as much as they wanted. First thing, it's a big problem, isn't it, to see 5,000 people. And they were looking for Jesus, not only for miracles, but for a relationship. It's not working.
Let us know when you start, okay?
All right, so do I have to start all over again? So anyways, where shall we buy bread for those people to eat? Where? There are many times in our lives that money is not enough. We could contextualize the question by saying, where can we find resources for our problems? Where can we find love? Where can I find relationship? Can we find people whom we can trust? Money is not the problem. Because even if you have the money, where would you go to buy 5,000 pieces of bread? Where? To Walmart? Can you see the problem? You go there and say, you know what? I have enough money and I need to buy 5,000 pieces of bread. Are you kidding? We don't have it, right? So, what is the real miracle here? A lot of people read this passage and look into see people eating the bread. But Jesus was trying to teach them something completely different.
And it took me some time to learn about this miracle. Let me drink the water because my throat is burst. So Jesus was trying to teach them something amazing. And what it was? Miracles. It's not only when what is that? Miracles, they take place when you are thankful for the things you have, not for the things you don't have. The disciples could not understand because Philip said, Lord, even if you had the money, 200 denarii would not be enough to buy bread for everybody. But the text says that Jesus already knew what he was going to do. Why? Because Jesus Christ is the incarnation of God. He knows each and every one of us. He knows our needs. He knows where we come from, and he knows where we're going. So the only thing Jesus did was let the people sit down. Sit down. Calm down. There is something to be thankful. Then he took the bread and he gave thanks, and the miracle took place. Why am I saying all of this stuff? Because I started my ministry with nothing. Absolutely nothing. Only my wife and I, the resources were not big enough. But the only thing we had was to learn to be thankful for the things we had. And what kind of things were they? My wife, my calling, people who trust me. And I said, Lord, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be here. To be in a place where I don't know how the ministry will take place. I don't know how can I help those people. But I do know one thing. I'm thankful for being here today. I'm thankful for allowing me to give this opportunity to help those people. And slowly I could see the bread being multiplied. I could see people eating from 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. I could see in 4 years something that started from nothing, absolutely nothing, growing and growing and growing in consciousness. People learning to be thankful. And miracles are always happening when we are thankful for the things we have. Have you forgotten to be thankful for the things you have today? Health, a house, relationships, friends, opportunities. So, long story short, I'm so thankful for everything the Lord has been giving us. That miracle has been taking place everywhere I go. The last miracle I was sharing with Stephen was my wife and I were in an Uber, talking Portuguese, and the lady, the driver, asked us, are you Brazilians? She said, yeah, we are. And I said, are you Brazilian? Yes, I am too. And I asked her, how long have you been here? She said, I've been here for 2 years. And what about you guys? I said, we've been here for 4 years. And I said, well, I'm a minister, and I work at College United Church and things like that. And out of the blue, she decided to open up her heart. And she was telling us all the struggles, all the difficulties with her husband and her daughter. And I was realizing that a church was taking place within an Uber. I have never been in a church Uber. Have you? So it was unbelievable. And as she was talking, I was listening to her. I was remembering everything that I had been going through. And I know what difficult is. But I didn't tell her. I was just listening. I said, I know what she's talking about because I faced difficult times in my life. My wife and I. And then, before she dropped us off at the location where we're supposed to go, I asked her, could you stop a little bit? I would like to pray for you. And before I prayed, we decided to talk a little bit, and tears were coming out of her eyes, and she was crying and crying and crying. And we shared the gospel. We shared the fish and the bread. The fish and the bread were share everything. She ate from the 5 loaves of bread and the 2 fish. And I could see the multiplication of the miracle taking place in her life. It's a miracle. And then we prayed. I gave my business card. My wife gave her number, and I told her where she would work at. I told her about our church, and it's another miracle. Another miracle. Jesus is not interested to making, to multiply 5,000 loaves of bread every day. It's not about the loaves, it's about consciousness. It's about the love of God. The people ate from the bread and the fish. But if you only eat from the bread and the fish without having this consciousness, what do you have? But having a heart with hunger. Hunger of relationship of love and care. So, everywhere we go, I've been sharing this. I don't have enough. But what I have, I will share with you. There is always another guy with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish to share. Are you willing to share? Because God's love is about sharing. God chose to be loved in the life of other people. And that's something that most people in our community, they don't know. It's not about raising your hand to heaven and saying, God, I love you so much. Love your neighbor. Share the bread. Share the fish. We don't have to say much. Because when we share the bread and when we share the fish, the miracle will take place. Always. Always. This is what my life has been. I have been going through all this learning process to be thankful. And the last thing, am I good in time?
Yeah.
The last thing, which is a miracle, you don't have any idea how stressful I'm here, to deliver this message within 10 minutes, Say, Lord, please, Lord, it's not enough fish for me. But anyways, that's the miracle. And ask yourself the same question. And the question is, where are we to buy bread for these people to eat? Well, why don't you and I leave this place asking ourselves one question. Where am I to find resources for my problem? Secondly, Jesus asked Philip, but he already knew what he was going to do. The first one to see the problem was not none of the disciples, Stephen or Philip, none of them. Stephen, I put him there somewhere, okay? Stephen. The first one to see the problem was Jesus. Jesus saw the problem. He was the first one to see the need of the people. And after all this, Philip understood that Jesus was, is, and will ever be in control. Because Jesus Christ is God himself. Jesus with the Father and the Holy Spirit. Without Christ, our resources, your resources, mean nothing. Because they're a church with 5,000 people coming together. And I say that because I had an opportunity to live in the U.S. But they are not feeding 5 people or 12 people. On the other hand, there is a small church with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And they're just sharing what they have. And the miracles are taking place. Miracles exist. But they are not where we think they are. They come to us. They find us. When we just open up our hearts with love for others. follow Jesus Christ is to follow his teachings. It's a miracle. I finished.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to kick it open to all of you for some, we have about 5 minutes for some discussion, a little less than 5 minutes. How would you like to respond to what God is saying to you this morning through Reverend Ricardo?
Thank you for that message. It was just beautiful. It spoke to all of our hearts. And I think that's a miracle in itself, that I think we all have within us a lot of fish. And I think living intentionally and looking people in the eyes on the subway, walking down the street, wherever you go, that is part of our miracle as humans, that we have it in us. And your message is something that resonates, I think, with everybody who's sitting here. They'll tell you, I talk a lot. So I'm not, I can't do it in a short thing. All I'm saying is that if we live intentionally every day and step out and see why is that person in front of us, whoever it may be, somebody on the street, somebody who comes to your door, wherever it is, why are those people in your life, and if we say, there's probably something here, somebody who needs a fish and maybe I have it, or in turn, they give us back the fish, so. Huh?
I have to do that every week.
Just another miracle.
That was wonderful. Thank you. I have a question for you. How did you make your way to Canada from Brazil to Texas to
Yeah,
Toronto?
yeah, well, you and I would have to sit down and drink, 5,000 of little cups of coffee. But I say one thing,
When Jesus was talking to Nicodemus, Nicodemus did not understand a lot of things, but Jesus said, it's like the wind. The wind blows. You don't know where it's coming, and you don't know where it's going. The Lord has blowing in a nutshell, and I'm here today because God, in an amazing way, has been giving me opportunities. I just trust in the wind, and the wind blew me here.
Thank you. Thanks for the reflection today. I guess the thing that hits me the most is when I read the Gospels, I experience the miracles in an almost arm's length way. It's like, oh, this is the time Jesus did the thing, right? And I think what you're connecting and what's really resonating for me is that every day we're still eating those loaves of bread and those fish. And that there's a responsibility through the Holy Spirit in us to share those fish, share those loaves every day. So it's brought me into the gospel in a way that I haven't really experienced it. So I want to thank you very sincerely for that.
Thank you.
It's interesting, you should say that. I want to just ask how to approach when those miracles are happening and people don't believe them. Like I had a conversation with my daughter yesterday, ironically, well timed around this, who now professes to be an agnostic. And I said, let's think about, how we're being told that Jesus will return. What would you think if suddenly there was a man or a person somewhere in the world who was doing all of these miracles? Well, because she's obviously not sure that this is all real. And her instant response was, that's just a scam. I would never believe it. So how do we get past, the miracles, we see them as miracles. Sometimes other people don't see them as miracles. How do we deal with that? How do we make sure it has purpose?
It's a good question, And my answer to you would be just one thing, do nothing. Do absolutely nothing. Be the best mother you can be to your daughter. Don't try to prove anything. Don't try to help God. Every time I try to help God, what happened? Big problems. You know what I do? Nothing. I have friends who don't believe in God. You know what I do? Nothing. I love them. I remember one day I was playing chess with a guy and he said, I don't believe in God. What do you have to say? I said, it's your turn, please. If I could prove the existence of God, this God is not good for anything. Nevertheless, if I could disprove the existence of God, this God is not good for anything either. God, either He speaks to us or we will never know. And there is a time for everything under the sun. So don't do nothing. When we do nothing and trust, God is the one who will validate the miracle. It's not us trying to prove anything. There are scams, of course there are. There were a lot of scams in Jesus' time as well. What we need to do? Nothing but love others. Because if you never give up for love, something will happen. Because the gospel is not an information. The gospel is a spirit. And every time someone comes to me and says, but I don't believe that's okay. But can I give you a hug? That's okay. You don't have to believe in anything. God is love. I believe you have to have a PhD in evil to go to heaven, to hell. You have to become the evil. God is love. God will find ways to help us to understand. Because there will be a time where this person will ask, where shall I find resources to solve my problems? That day, the fish will come to him or to her or to whoever. Do nothing. Believe me, when I stop doing things, the Lord has been multiplied the crab and the fish. I cannot help but just be myself and love others. That's it.